Okay, you ready? Everybody swap tests. Swap papers with somebody. Swap papers with your neighbor.
John called, I didn't swap papers with you. I got my
You
paper.
swap papers with your neighbor? Turn this thing off today. All right.
Hey, the ball everywhere.
All right, you ready? You got somebody else's paper? You got somebody else's paper? Everybody got somebody else's paper? Smog is what?
Ozone.
You didn't know this, you can't say it.
What's ozone?
Like the atmospheric gas that's around us.
You gotta do better than that. The atmospheric gas that's around us is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. It's not ozone, okay? Did you know that you make ozone every time you make every time a piece of lightning happens, bam, bam, it makes ozone. Ozone is O3. 3 molecules of oxygen, okay? Have you ever smelled ozone? Hmm?
I wasn't sure.
You have, but you didn't know it. Have you ever been in a place where something was shorting out and it was going boom, 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 and you smell this electric smell? That's ozone that you're
I'm
smelling.
talking about like that burnt circuit board smell.
Yeah, that's the sort. Well, some of what you're smelling on a burnt circuit board is a burnt circuit board. But if you were to take something that would make sparks, and you were to strike it together, and make sparks, you start smelling ozone. And it's got a sort of a stinking smell that reminds you of electrical stuff. You
Like
know?
when you hold a light switch in between on and off and it,
Yeah.
that smell.
Yeah, that smell that's coming out of that's ozone. Are you doing that? That's dangerous. Okay. Which gas controlled or reduced by which gas is controlled or reduced by the exhaust gas recirculation system? Hello.
Say that again?
C.
Which gas is controlled or reduced by the exhaust gas recirculation
Oh,
system?
hey. NOx.
Oxides of nitrogen. The reason they call that NOx is because it's NO and the little X on is a subscript. It can be any number. So you may have several molecules of oxygen. You may have one molecule of oxygen bound to nitrogen. You may have several. So it'll all be a whole bunch of things. What do you think of when you think of nitrous oxide?
Sir?
What do you think of when you think of nitrous?
Nitrogen.
NOS, the stuff that you put in your hot rod car.
Hey, I got one, you want me to bring it?
Yeah, well, I tell you what was funny, this one guy that was in here got a bottle of nitrous that he got from somebody, and he hooked a water hose to it. And he ran it into his intake. And he was out there in Andalusia over there somewhere where they raced, and he was racing a little 96, no, maybe an 06 Ford Ranger with a 2.3 in it. And he ran that thing for several hours, and every time, whenever he'd run, he'd put that nitrous in there and, try to outrun whoever. And I don't know how many times he did that, but finally he blew the engine. But he says, I don't know how many times, it's astonished me how many times I did this and that thing took it. How tough that engine was and how much punishment it took before it came apart. When you're running nitrous into an engine with a water hose and a crack in the bottle, I mean, that's kind of reckless, but that was a reckless guy anyway. And the engine was blown. He didn't tell me about this until later. And his mother called and says, when y'all tear that engine apart, can you tell if he was abusing it when it came apart? And I said, yeah, we can tell. And he went, oh, you really? Is that right? He was afraid that he was going to get in trouble, What emission control system helps reduce the effect of engine blow-by? Somebody tell me?
C.
Say it loud.
C.
No.
You got like really long.
No, it's not that.
I got A.
You got A? What does PCV stand for?
Just seen it.
Uh,
Positive crankcase ventilation.
Positive crankcase ventilation. That's your little vacuum. Sometimes they'll just have a little vacuum orifice pulling out of the crankcase. And they'll have a closure hose on the other side. It's pulling filtered air in.
Hey, what do you do if you got a throttle body fuel injected Chevy and that's like full of junk?
That's right. If you got a throttle body fuel injected Chevy, the vacuum line for the PCV comes off of the back of the throttle body underneath there, and it clogs up with carbon. PCV system quits working, and if it stops up the crankcase filter bad enough on the other side with all that smoke going the other way, it can actually just trap all of those blow-by gases in the crankcase and start blowing seals. So you'll have one that's the rear main's leaking, the timing cover's leaking, the valve covers are leaking, the intake gasket's leaking, every darn thing's leaking. It will start pushing those seals out there and it's leaking all over the place. And here's the other thing. If you ever work on one that every seal on it is leaking, you better be checking that PCV system. Because I worked at a shop where this guy pulled an engine out, resealed it, put it back in, never even checked the PCV system. They gave it to me to sew it up. And I looked at the PCV system just as clogged up solid as brick. And if we'd let it out that way, it'd come back with all them same seals leaking, they'd do it all over again. See? So, I mean, he did not find the reason for all of the oil leaks, he just fixed all the oil leaks, and that's a bad way to go.
That's the way to go there.
The catalytic converter does what?
I put all the above.
It's all the above. It's located in the exhaust system and helps reduce HCCO, H2O and CO2. Actually, that's sort of not true, because basically it takes everything that's going in there. It breaks down NOx into nitrogen and oxygen. It adds a molecule of oxygen to CO to make it CO2. It basically breaks down, I mean, adds 2 molecules of oxygen to HC to make it CO2. And so basically what it wants is CO2 to come out the pipe. Okay, so what happens when CO2 comes out the pipe? The grass beside the road grows really, really well, so much they gotta mow it.
Wait, say it again?
Yeah, all that CO2 coming out, the grass is just soaking that up, say, hey man, give me some more. Because that's basically like oxygen to you. CO2 to the grass is like you breathe in your air, man. And it wants that. So it just gets thick and green, and they have to run the mowers down the side of the road to mow it, because the grass, the exhaust coming out of the cars is feeding the grass. And the clover. You notice that? You know this clover growing beside the road in the springtime? You see that? Well, it ain't growing out yonder, it's growing right by the road. Isn't it? And it's really soaking up that CO2. Well, what the conventional wisdom is, supposedly quote unquote wisdom, is that CO2 is a problem, when actually the plants and the trees like CO2. If you cut off their air supply, everything turns brown. See what I'm saying?
They make more oxygen too, don't they?
They make oxygen, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's plants hook up CO2. Here's another little blurb. Here's another little blurb. I guarantee you're not being taught in school. How much of a tree comes out of the ground?
Half of it.
90%.
Comes out of the ground. 5% comes out of the ground. 90% comes out of the air. Or 95% comes out of the air. In other words, 90% of a tree comes out of thin air, but only 5% of it comes out of the ground. That's why when a tree grows in the ground humps up around it, because it's putting stuff there that wasn't there before. That's photosynthesis. You see what I'm saying? It's taking sunlight, it's taking carbon dioxide, and it just grows. It ain't pulling it out of the dirt. Now it's getting water, but only 5% of what that tree is made of is coming out of the ground. The rest of it's coming out of thin air. It sounds pretty miraculous, doesn't it? Have you ever seen those air ferns that you put in something like a little bird cage? They ain't in no dirt and they just grow. You seen those things? All right, go get you some of those. Okay, secondary air injection system does what? It includes an air pump, injects air into the exhaust to reduce emissions, includes valves and pipes. Okay, at what temperature does oxygen combine with nitrogen in the air to form NOx?
2,500 degrees.
2,500 degrees. You had to dig for that one, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Who else got that one right? Everybody got it? Okay. Okay, let's see, at what temperature, what top hybrid uses 36 to 42 volts?
Mild hybrid.
That's a mild hybrid. And you know, that's the one that's got this inverter generator on the front up there, that's got a belt around the crankshaft, and it can start that thing. Those little motors are really pretty strong. The gasoline engine of a hybrid electric stops running when the vehicle stops at a traffic light. Technician A says that's normal for most hybrid electric vehicles. Technician B says there's a fault with the engine. Who's right about that? That's normal for most hybrid electric vehicles.
Technician A.
Technician A.
I just get them right, didn't you?
Huh?
Did you shoot them right? What does that mean?
You're right, I'm sorry. Which type of hybrid is capable of propelling the vehicle using just the electric motor?
Full hybrid.
Yeah, full hybrid. How far can you drive using just the electric motor? I'm talking about not on a Chevy Volt or a Tesla, but I'm talking about a regular one, huh?
100 miles.
Actually, you're gonna go a little over a mile and then you'll be sitting beside the road with a dead battery. You can't drive that far. It basically helps, but it's not gonna take you that far. So if you run out of gas on your hybrid, which has a gas engine, don't just keep driving thinking BI8, I'll be just driving along on my battery, because before you even get to the house, you're gonna be dead from the water. And that's not a good thing, okay? Which type of hybrid electric costs the least?
The mild hybrid.
The mild hybrid is that, and there's Chevy pickups and some, cars and stuff like that out there.
Wait, they make pickup truck hybrids?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They make pickup trucks full hybrids and mild
Full
hybrids.
drive, full hybrid?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the Toyota Highlander hybrid is a four-wheel drive. You know, so, now I will tell you this, the parts for these doggone things, there was a guy that sent me an email a while back. He said, I got a 2012 Chevy Volt that needs a battery, and it's $10,000 for a battery. What's the problem with batteries?
They go bad.
Eventually, they start to die. You're not gonna have a battery that's gonna last. In other words, even the car battery in your car, it starts out strong with like 850 cold cranking amps. Next year it'll have 650, next year it'll have 500, and it goes down over time. So you're gonna have a period of time where you're on a hybrid where your fuel economy drops off because your battery is going away. And then you can sooner or later you're gonna have a battery, right? How can a hybrid electric vehicle be identified?
Both A and B.
Both A and B. So, I mean, no car is maintenance free, I don't care what kind it is, right? What routine service procedure could result in lower fuel economy, but which the owner may discover? And this is on a hybrid vehicle. Huh? Yeah, if you replace the tires and put the wrong kind of tires on them or they're not perfectly inflated, it could affect your fuel economy. What will happen is your customer will say, let me tell you something, before you did this work, I was getting 95 miles to the gallon and now I'm only getting 89. And I don't know what's wrong. See what I mean? I mean, there's like, they notice, they're watching that, you know.
I will.
Yeah, and so, well, you're not gonna just say, suck it up, buttercup, you know, you're already getting 89 miles a gallon. You gotta tell them to get their act, you know, you gotta get your act together and fix that. Technician A says the first step in the diagnostic process is to verify the concern. Technician B says the second step is to perform a thorough physical inspection, or, excuse me,
You always do
visual, not physical.
inspection
First, and neither technician.
That's both of them.
Wow.
Well, verify the concern.
Oh,
If somebody comes over here and they say my car is skipping or whatever, you've got to see if you can catch it in the act of
I was
doing that,
thinking
or
doing visual
verify
inspection,
somehow,
then
and then the visual inspection is gonna happen after that. Here's something else. If it's an intermittent problem, don't pull on stuff, because if you pull on something and you fix it and don't know what you did, then it's gonna come back and you're gonna have to look at it again. You see what I'm saying? I've seen that happen. People, I pulled around on this harness and it quit doing it, and now I don't know what I did, you know? I wasn't very smart. You know, what you're basically gonna do is, you don't let your fingers do the walking unless it's an all the time problem and you can verify something. But if it's sometimes doing it, you look for stuff that's scratching against a bracket, or you look for stuff that's partially unplugged. One day this lady brought her Mustang over there. This is one of the times when I just about got in trouble. Oh gosh, this was back in 1988. And the convertible Mustang, and she said, when a little four-cylinder, and when I take off it skips sometimes, you know. And she acted like it did this about all the time. Well, I drove that thing all over town. I couldn't get it to skip, you know, I'm just driving around. And finally I says, you know, it's getting close to lunch, I think I'll wheel in at the credit union and give me some money for lunch. And so I pulled into the drive-thru. She saw me in there, and then she wanted to stop rail on me for using her car to run errands. But the point is, she got in the car and was gonna show me what it was doing, and she couldn't get it to do it either. And then she sort of calmed down a little bit, but I said, I'll figure out what's wrong with this, give me a chance. I said, you know, I mean, I wasn't actually parking in front of JCPenney's and going there to buy a pair of pants or something, you know, I was basically just, because I got to take off anyway, and if I stop in the drive-thru, I'm going to take off when I leave from there, you know. So anyway, it turned out that one of the connectors was partially unplugged, and it was dropping one of the injectors. And so I clicked when I finally found that. But I basically looked at it and happened to spot it. There was another one that where I had to go get a, did you know it's illegal to tow, to put a propane, you know, with a big gas truck, haul the propane gas? It's illegal to put that behind a wrecker and haul it. You can't do that. I mean, it's not permitted to haul, to put one of those behind a wrecker. And that's nasty, because they don't want explosions, you know.
smarter, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just dangerous, you know, to have a liquid petroleum gas truck. And so they told me one time, they says, this is a brand new truck, and it's up there north of Montgomery. This gas company, they were going out by this pond over here, back there where a trailer was, to put gas in the trailer, you know, gas tank. And they got about halfway back to the road, and the truck quit. Now that truck, if you see one of them LP gas trucks, you know, with the big propane thing on the side, that truck is always fixed up to run off propane. And so what they do is they get a propane regulator and they put it in there, and they run it off propane. They got a way of doing that, and that way it saves them all. They don't have to buy gas. So this thing quit. So this is not a fuel injection problem, right? Not as far as warranty goes. And so I went up there and whenever I drove, put a bunch of parts in this shop car and drove way off up to Montgomery nearly. And I went off down to the field where the guy led me on the pickup down there where the truck was. And when I got up there, I reached over in there and there was one connector that was unplugged in front of me. Click. That's all I had to do to get started. But being able to find that was something else too. There was a guy one time I was working with down at Sabine, and he says, can you look at my air conditioner? So when I looked at the air conditioner, it seemed like I put a juice in it. I bypassed the low pressure switch and the compressor kicked on, it started cooling. And I said, you need to put a low pressure switch on here. And he says, hey, that's cool, how much I owe you? And I said, $65. He said, what? All you do is jump wires. I said, well, I knew which wires to jump. But I didn't charge him $65, I just told him that. All right. Okay, close off the conversation back here. What we got here?
Number
14, a global generic OBDII scan tool is capable of displaying what?
A and B.
Yeah, emission rated data only. And you know, typically they can't talk to the car and make things happen either. And the two-way talking scan tool, if you're gonna get a scan tool, you want one that talks two ways. You want one where you can tell the PCM to do something so you can troubleshoot better. If you're just, all you can do is look into the system, that helps, but it's not as helpful as being able to tell it to turn on the free fan relay or turn on the fuel pump relay or whatever. Because that way you can see the PCM's capable of doing things. And if wires are cut or whatever, bad delays. What is the factory scan tool for General Motors vehicles?
Take two.
Tech 2. What's the factory scan tool for Ford?
IDS.
What's the factory scan tool for Chrysler?
D.
WITech.
Yeah, Y-Tech.
Whitech. It used to be Star Scan or something like that. And it was pretty cool because it would pull you a picture of the network up of all the computers that were on the network. And if you wanted to talk to one of them, you'd tap that computer and it would bring it to the fore, and then you could tell it what you wanted to do and all that. Pretty neat. Which step should be performed last when diagnosis an engine performance problem? Diagnosing an engine performance problem.
Checking for any stored diagnostic trouble codes.
Verify the repair. When you're completely done with this thing,
Oh.
that's the next to the last. You're gonna make sure that you've cleared all the trouble codes, and you're gonna drive it, and you're gonna make sure that it's fixed. Try to actually match the conditions where the problem happened to start with, so you can be sure it's possible. Sometimes you don't know, you just gotta go on faith. Which scan tool can access detailed information on many makes and models?
Any of the above.
Any of the above. OTC Genesis, Snap-on Solus, Auto Ingenuity, and then the Snap-on's also got other ones now. Technician A says a vehicle may have stored DTCs even if the mill is not illuminated. Technician B says all DTCs will illuminate the mill.
A.
All right, now let me tell you something really quick. It's super important. You hear me? Watch this. And most people don't know this. You can go talk to your mechanic friend, and he probably won't know this. You ready for something? Every PCM has 2 rooms in it. 2 rooms. 2 rooms in every PCM, right? Most of the people that use scan tools think there's 1 room in the PCM and the same information is in all the same rooms. Since you got 2 rooms in there, let me tell you what happened to me one time. We had on a Ford Escort that come out here, a code for a misfire. And we had pulled it up on the enhanced side. The enhanced side does everything else. Listen before you run off now, listen. All right, so we pulled it up on the enhanced side, we found a misfire code for cylinder number 4, right? I cleared the code on that one, but the light stayed on. So I went back into the enhanced side again, I checked it again, there was no codes in there. But then I went into the OBDII, which talks on a different wire and gets this information from a different room in the PCM. And I found a code in there that I cleared, and that's when the light went off. So there's 2 rooms in there. One more thing, while you're at it, this thing won't cost you anything, except just a minute for listening to you. We ain't got time to do anything in the shop anyway. So watch this. What we got is, let's say that you're looking at a scan tool screen and you see that the transmission oil temperature is reading 45 degrees, the engine coolant temperature is reading 45 degrees, but the intake air temperature is reading 101 degrees. What does that mean? Shouldn't they all read the same if it's been sitting for 3 or 4 hours? Yeah. So you compare all those to each other. If you see one that's way out of line, that's in your enhanced room. When you go into your OBDII room, which is just plain old OBD2, you basically are gonna see 40 below zero on the IET. So what it does is the algorithm is tapped so that it will substitute a value it thinks will work. And if you see one in your enhanced screen that doesn't line up with the other ones, you go back in the OBD2 screen, you look at it and see what it reads in there. If it reads 40 below, what does that mean? Sensor's unplugged, wire broke, bad sensor, something like that. And that tells you, you know, hey, you go right to it. All right, you got that?